everyone. Welcome to today's Knowledge at Noon event. We're looking at common Agile Transformation challenges and solutions. And I am joined with a great guest today, Michael Spead. He does double duty here. He is not only a faculty member in our MPS, our Masters of Professional Studies in Project Management here at the School of Continuing Studies. He is also an instructor within our certificate in project management. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here today. And I just want to turn this over to you.
Okay, great. So thanks for the intro. Yes, I've been working at Georgetown now for, 8 or 9 years, I think. And I've been teaching predictive project management, agile product management for like 13, 14 years. I've been doing this most of my career. I started off as an accidental project manager. I had a day job, and then it turned into taking on more and more project work. And eventually I realized I should probably get trained in this. And then that ended up being my entire career. So I design and implement and evolve PMOs. I do a lot of agile coaching and transformation work. And I do a lot of independent program evaluation, assessment, improvement, that kind of stuff. I've worked in a variety of different industries, financial services, wireless broadband, construction, air and space, professional services, nonprofit. And now I do a lot of work for a variety of different government clients. I used to be a VP and board member for PMI's Washington, D.C. chapter. And I used to be very, very involved in that space. Then I had kids and moved out of the DC area down to Florida. And so I have not been as involved since. So why Agile? So right now, a lot of organizations, they're kind of struggling with, they've spent decades and decades and decades investing in having a approach to manage predictive and waterfall projects. Now the world is kind of shifting to agile products, and there's good reason for it. What we've seen is over decade after decade after decade, and this used to hurt me to my core when I used to review a lot of emerging studies about project management. What we've seen decade after decade after decade is that predictive projects fail. And a lot of times they fail because they're too big, they're too risky, they're too clunky. The process isn't really aligned to modern technology life cycles where customers expect things to change a few months after they ask for it. So that doesn't really align well to a predictive project management approach. So why Agile? In a 2018 survey of 1,000 C-suite executives by Forum Insights and Scrum Alliance, 81% of respondents considered agility the most important characteristic of a successful organization. Not in the top 5, not in the top 10, but the number 1. And the benefits that they achieve from organizational agility: faster time to market, faster innovation, improved non-financial and financial results, improved employee morale, and the ability to attract and hire top talent. These are all things that any organization would and should strive for. And what we see is that if you look at more recent surveys and studies, a lot of this continues on. A lot of these benefits and rationales for agility continue. One of the things that I kind of want to note too is Agile is everywhere. A lot of times folks think about Agile in terms of IT and software development. It started there, but it has evolved, and a lot of organizations use it for non-IT, non-software development efforts. One of the biggest things that's a challenge for people to wrap their heads around: predictive and waterfall, a project management approach is completely distinct from an agile product-based approach. They follow the same software development lifecycle, but the way that the value delivery occurs with Agile, it's in shorter increments, it's faster. That software development lifecycle is applied to a smaller batch of work. And the goal is to get working product out as fast as possible and reduce a lot of the planning effort that needs to occur for large, long-term, risky, predictive projects. So a lot of organizations, one of the things that you'll hear from a lot of organizations is, oh, we're just going to fine tune or adapt our predictive waterfall process to incorporate Agile, or we're going to have a hybrid model. Those things don't really work. What ends up happening is because they are very distinct approaches, you have a different, you incorporate aspects of Agile, but not the full methodology. And then you start to fail. And all those failures get laid at the feet of agility instead of being recognized as we failed because we did not embrace agility and go and implement a fully agile methodology and approach. All right, so some of the things here, if we think about agile, smaller investments with less risk, incremental value delivery over short cycles, near-term returns, so you get faster value delivery, faster recognition of the benefits. You have adaptable scope and decision-making. So your scope can change based on what you hear from customers and end users that are using the actual product you released. That's really the key to Agile, and a lot of places miss this, is you need to have short, fixed release cycles that you stick to. So if we're Agile and we're an Agile product, we release every 6 months. When you guys go to bed at night, all the apps on your phone update overnight. And when they update, it's usually going to be on a 3-month or a 6-month cycle, maybe even shorter. And what they will do is the reason for that is that everyone within the org works towards that rhythm, towards that cadence. And that's a critical part of it. All right. Because we release value on these short increments, we have the ability to capture feedback from customers and end users. So when you fall asleep and your phone updates your app, the next time you use it, it's going to ask you, how do you like our app? 1 to 5 stars. And if you give less than 5 stars, it normally asks you to tell them why. That's them getting feedback from you so they can do better next time. I mentioned fixing the schedule. That's a critical aspect. Fixing the release cycles for Agile. With predictive waterfall, we fix the scope. We fix all the requirements, and then we estimate the schedule and the budget or cost that we need to deliver on that scope. And what ends up happening is then our scope is locked in, so we can't change it even if good ideas emerge as we start building. It's really hard to change that scope. And then we estimate out our cost and schedule. So all of our metrics and data and all that is centered around cost and schedule. Everyone wants to know that we got those estimates right. But what's missing here? Value, customer satisfaction, things like that. So with Agile, we flip this model. We say, you know what? We're going to fix schedule. We're going to have fixed release cycles. And we're going to fix cost, because we're going to have dedicated resources to a particular product. And that product is going to continue to be invested in until we deem that it is no longer valuable. It's never done. So by fixing cost and schedule, we simplify things. Now we're focused on value. How much value we can release to customers, what value we want to prioritize to release. Are the customers happy? Are they satisfied? Do they love our product? So it shifts the whole conversation and it focuses you on the right things. One of the key things that a lot of places get wrong is once they fix that cadence they fix their increments, they fix their release cycles, they fix those cycles for value delivery, they let them flex. Well, we didn't quite get everything done, so we're going to shift out this release. Don't. Releasing some value is better than releasing no value at all. So if you don't get to completing a particular feature, just deliver it in the next one. But release the other features that are done. And if you stick to that cycle, if you stick to that cadence, for your release cycles, your increments, you are going to constantly, consistently be releasing value to customers and end users, and they are going to come to expect it, anticipate it, want more. Apple releases an iPhone every 6 months, right? And so that's what customers came to expect, that every 6 months they could get a new iPhone. And every 6 months people got excited. What are they going to release next? What's the new features and functionality that they're going to bake in? And that's how you want your customers to be, chomping at the bit for that next release that you have. The other thing that's great about this, keeping and sticking to that cadence, is once you release, you can get that feedback and you can use that feedback to make the product better. And that feedback, and that release is going to lead to some sort of benefit or value for customers that you can incrementally add to over time. This is really different from a predictive waterfall project where there is a big bang release of value at the end or a promise of big bang value. But what study after study shows is that when you have these very long-term release cycles, you don't have a lot of feedback from customers because they don't have working product to use, then basically it's highly risky, and it's highly likely that you are going to deliver something that's obsolete upon release. If I'm capturing requirements now today and delivering something 2 years down the road, by then customer needs have changed. Competitors and the competitive landscape has changed. So if I fixed my requirements and then I release something 2 years down the road, it may be obsolete upon delivery. Oh, and I didn't mention up front, but if anyone has any questions as we go through or comments or anything, feel free to ask, post them in the chat, jump in whenever you feel like it. The other thing, one of the other pitfalls that I see with a lot of orgs when they go to attempt an agile transformation is analysis paralysis. They want to have, because they're used to executing these plan-driven projects, they want to have the perfect plan and they want to execute it in a predictive waterfall way. So they want to do a ton of upfront planning to drive their change. And a lot of times, even like your not so great agile coaches and org change people will recommend this approach. But the reality is that Agile provides you with the ability to start small, so you can have a grassroots effort and kind of build up, your knowledge of Agile. You can experiment with specific products and burning platform products. You can also start at the top and try to train everyone and get moving. But the goal really is to get moving and let the action and the results of those short incremental value deliveries compound over time, let people see it, let customers love it, and then use that to continue to improve. All right. Everyone, including leadership, needs to evolve. This is really critical because a lot of times when I go into organizations and I'm like, all right, we're going to do an agile transformation, we're going to train everyone on agile. Who are the first people that say they don't have time? Leadership. Who is the most critical to be involved? Leadership. So you need to make sure that they are on board or at least participating. And so, because one of the big things that you are going to change is you are going to change from what is traditionally a command and control project management infrastructure. We have approval boards and phase gates and things like that, to more of a servant leadership and collaborative approach. Teams are empowered. They have more authority. They have more ability or greater ability to make decisions. Because in reality, they have the information. Leadership doesn't. So leadership switches their model to be more of a servant. They're trying to provide the teams with what they need to be successful. They're looking out across the portfolio of products that are out there, and they're acting more like venture capitalists, seed investors, than they are like stewards of a budget or the person who has, all the answers. So big shift in how leaders need to think, act, behave. All right. The other big thing is a lot of times in that command and control environment, the leader is making decisions. And again, they're disconnected from the product, the customers, the work, but they're making the call instead of listening. So, what we see a lot with Agile products is you are listening to the customer and end user. You are not supplanting your opinions for theirs. You're listening to what they have to say. And a lot of times you're making data driven decisions to fulfill their needs versus trying to assume that you know better than them.
Michael, I had a quick question if it's still a good time.
Yeah, sure.
I was just wondering if you could speak to some of the strategies you use to encourage leadership to adopt that more collaborative style with Agile.
Absolutely. So, one of the first things that you need to do is you need to identify, who's critical to be a part of this change. And one of the things that usually you're going to have, two or three camps. There are going to be your champions, the people who are all for this. There are going to be your detractors, the people who don't want to do this at all. And then there are going to be people in the middle who don't really care. And so, you want to make sure you understand what camp people fall in. You want to try to empower, your champions. You want to try to win over some of your detractors. And the biggest thing that you can do to get started is you want to try to, before you get into a very deep dive about Agile, a lot of times it's important to understand a burning platform reference within the company. What is a good driver or a reason that we want to make this change? And in any organization out there, it's always pretty easy to find a project that blew up spectacularly. And so you can potentially leverage that as a discussion point. A lot of times I look at historic project data within an organization too to see PM success and failure rates based on a predictive waterfall model. If they have examples of Agile, I try to draw from that too. So you have that information to spotlight and showcase. Sometimes within organizations, if you take that grassroots approach, then you can develop Agile experiments to showcase how Agile took a failing project or program and turned it around. So there are lots of different ways. The other thing that's really, again, kind of critical is you definitely want to have an executive summary view of why Agile is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You also want to make sure that those leaders are involved in a deeper dive training. And sometimes I'll do a targeted training to talk about this in detail. So shifting the way that leadership organizes themselves, makes decisions, thinks about how they invest in things, and that can help as well. So, I guess understanding the leadership structure, grouping them appropriately, targeting them with training, and leveraging any sort of insight you can based on burning platform project failures or burning platform Agile successes.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions? All right. So ongoing training and Agile coaching is critical. A lot of organizations will say, all right, I'm going to hire an Agile coach up front to kind of structure things, get everyone trained, and then see you later. Well, that's really not going to work, because if you train teams and you get them ready, once they start executing, they are going to hit bumps in the road. They're going to hit points in time where they don't know what to do, or they didn't really follow an appropriate Agile practice or methodology, and they're going to immediately want to revert and go back to the old way. Or they're going to try to apply a solution that is a predictive waterfall solution to an Agile problem. And we don't want that. We want to apply agile solutions to agile problems. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. The other thing, and the other huge benefit of agile coaching is if they're coaching across various products and teams, they can help to bring success stories and spotlight success stories across teams to show innovative ways of doing things. And that can really enhance your agile transformation effort. So if I see that this team over here is doing a really great job of road mapping, for example, or decomposing their backlog, I can ask them to talk to some of the other teams. Or if I know another team's struggling, I can at least point them in the right direction and say, hey, you should go talk to them over there. Without that, you're going to lose some of that ability. One of the things that people struggle with, this is leadership and teams, is I don't have a multi-year view of the world anymore. So with Agile, what you're going to do is you're going to have a very high-level roadmap. This is the value we intend to deliver to you when. Usually features, these are the features we intend to deliver to you over the next year, maybe 2 years, but it's not that long-term. A lot of times with our predictive waterfall projects, we have a highly detailed project schedule that gives us this false sense of security, but it tells us exactly what's going to happen over the next 2, 3, 5 years. But a lot of that in reality is a guess, right? And a lot of that, a lot of times with Agile, we anticipate that we are going to adapt and change to maximize value. So we're going to change our requirements. We're going to change what we deliver. But as long as it's to maximize value, it's a good thing. So one of the things that we tend to do with Agile is we have a high-level long-term view. This is how we intend to deliver our value over our routine fixed release cycles. And so we focus on near-term value delivery and requirements. And we do that in our product backlog by taking the features that we intend to deliver over the next release and decomposing them down to the story level. But the story level is even higher level than a project schedule because we typically don't decompose it down to tasks and activities, steps towards value. We decompose it down to a story, which is an expression of value. So there's less fidelity overall with Agile in terms of planning, because at the end of the day, we are releasing working product at the end of a short term. We don't have a very long-term value delivery cycle, so we don't have to uber plan everything out to show that we did our homework. If we deliver the things that we said that we're going to deliver, and the customer is satisfied because we can engage with them and get feedback, then we've met our goal. All right. Any questions on this? I saw a couple things blow up in chat. All right. So the big thing is that you want to have that routine incremental value delivery, and you want to have a mechanism to capture feedback from customers so you can adapt based on that feedback in a way that's going to maximize value for them. If you're not capturing feedback or you're not listening to feedback, your customers are likely going to be unhappy. All right. If you don't contract for agility, you won't get it. So this is especially true, and I know, Georgetown, we're in DC. This is especially true in government, but it is true in private industry as well. If you go out and you actually contract to get work done by vendors, you need to make sure that you are telling them some important information. You want to make sure that you are contracting for one, instead of a fixed set of requirements or a fully baked product, you're contracting for software development capacity, software teams, or delivery teams if you're not working in software. You want to make sure that you are contracting in a way that allows you the flexibility and adaptability to shift priorities if you need to. You want to make sure that you are holding on to the product owner role so you can tell the teams what to produce and reprioritize as you need to. You want to make sure that you are telling them and that whatever approach to Agile, whatever practice they want to follow, that it aligns to what you want as well. If your organization does safe, you want to make sure that they do safe. If it does Scrum at scale, you want to make sure they do Scrum at scale. And they know how to do that. All right. If you do that, then you're likely going to have better engagement between you and your contractor. You're going to feel like one team instead of us versus them. If you don't do that, you're likely going to run into challenges. You're going to have to potentially renegotiate contracts or have an unsuccessful time with your contractor. You want to make sure that you are ruthlessly attacking blockers and waste. So, when you first get started, you are going to have a lot of processes, functions, silos, people that are organized around a phase-gated project management approach. And that's not going to work for Agile. You're going to have lots of people that might be in different functional orgs. Hey, we are the test and evaluation org. We are the cyber org. We are this, we are that. But now they have to figure out how to evolve to incorporate themselves and embed themselves within product teams. Or they have to figure out a way to operate in the background to continuously assess and evaluate progress in a way that doesn't disrupt the team. So, you're going to likely have a lot of these function, people, organizational challenges that you have to address. You're going to have policies and processes that are in place to that are built around predictive waterfall value delivery that you have to tackle and knock down. So lots of different things that you may have to not only identify, but you need to have people that are willing to help. And this right here, this is the kind of stuff that you want leadership to target. Hey, we need a new policy that lets us deliver value a lot faster than, dropping it off with the test team and they need 3 to 6 months to test everything. We need to get requirements from cyber folks up front so we can build towards it instead of them playing a game of gotcha at the end when we're getting ready to release. These are things that leadership can help with. All right. Let's see. Excessive documentation is another big one. Hey, we have all of our projects go through and build a project schedule, an IMS, a project management plan. Well, Agile doesn't use any of those things. So what do we need for Agile? We need a roadmap. We need a product backlog. We need a value delivery strategy. Those are the big things. The other thing is you really need to, and one of the other challenges I see a lot, organizations want to use the same tools and metrics that they've always used. The problem is that one, we can't use project schedules anymore because project schedules are designed for a predictive waterfall world. They're designed to have tasks, activities, specific start and end dates for all those tasks and activities. They're not structured to capture value delivery. They're structured to capture hours and hourly rates to build up a budget that way. Well, we don't care about that anymore because we have a team that's dedicated. So we don't need that level of granularity. So that's going to change. You can't use EVM because EVM uses project schedule information and data that's not available with Agile practice. You need different metrics, different tools. And so this is something that you have to understand. All right. All right. So you may want to think about standing up your own Agile DevSecOps pipeline or software factory. So a lot of organizations, the only hybrid you ever want to talk about, it's not predictive waterfall and Agile as a hybrid. The only hybrid you ever want to talk about is Agile with DevSecOps. Those two things work amazingly well together. If you have a good Agile practice, you have a good DevSecOps pipeline, you're in good shape. So a lot of times we want to think about how to treat that. And what a lot of organizations don't get is there's a lot of value to having your own DevSecOps pipeline, your own software factory. There's a lot of value to treating that in and of itself as a product that you are going to continuously evolve and improve, just like any other product in your portfolio. So you want to make sure that you are thinking through this. If you let contractors or vendors do all the development on their side and throw you a product over the fence, it can be hard if you want to take ownership of that product, if you want to continuously evolve it. It can create challenges in terms of IP rights. Who actually owns the product that's produced? Who owns the underlying data? Who owns data labels? Who owns all the information that's in the product backlog, for example? So sometimes it can be cleaner to bring folks into your Agile practice versus the other way around. All right, so supporting functions need to move at the speed of the fastest Agile team. Whatever your fastest Agile team is, supporting functions either need to get out of the way or they need to figure out a way to get their needs met at the speed of that team. So if I have, for example, a test and evaluation group, well, ideally, they're going to try to embed folks within these Agile teams. They're going to provide upfront requirements to help, in the definition of done and acceptance criteria and things like that to help get, stories built right the first time. But at minimum, if they aren't for some reason, you have to figure out a way that, they can move at the speed of your fastest Agile teams. They have processes in place, policy in place that will allow for it. One of the key things that I see in a lot of orgs is they always want to have these boards that weigh in on things. And a lot of times these boards are, they're folks within leadership that are disconnected from the product, the teams, the customers, and, their insights. Sometimes it's a roll of the dice. Sometimes there's some value there. Sometimes there's not. But a lot of times they don't have enough information to make the best decision. And they're too disassociated from the product, the customers to get to the right decision. So get those folks out of the way, put in place a good product owner or product manager that is closer and can make a better decision. The other thing that you're probably going to need to do to help solution this is upskill existing resources for agility. So it's not enough that you train leadership and product teams. If there are any supporting functions, you may have to get them some coaching as well. Hey, I'm a finance person and I help review project costs. All right, well, what does that mean if you're transitioning to Agile products? How do you do a good job in your role based on that? Hey, I'm a test and evaluation person, and I usually help, structure and drive the user acceptance testing for a product before it can be approved, for a project before it can be approved and rolled out. Okay, well, now how do you think about how your role is changing? Maybe you're embedded in the Agile team. Maybe you're helping to define acceptance criteria and helping folks to think about what automated testing might look like versus trying to do all this stuff on the back end and play a game of gotcha. You're also going to have a different approach to operations and sustainment. So, a lot of times when we take a project and we're done with a project, we take the result and the project team throws it over the fence to an operations, maintenance, sustainment team. And then it's their responsibility to take care of it. And then the project team usually gets disbanded and dispersed to work on other projects, or they go back to their day job. The challenge with that is, one, the team that's taking it on didn't develop it. They don't really know how it works. That's always been a problem. So a lot of times those folks, they can kind of maintain it. And if there are issues, they can do like some very minimal bug fix stuff. But for the most part, if there's a serious issue that happens, or if there's a new need that arises, they have to go back to people that were on that original project team and disrupt them from whatever they're doing now. So that's a huge, huge issue and challenge in any organization. So with Agile, like when you develop a new product, the same team that is doing new product, new capability evolution is also doing the operations, maintenance, sustainment work. So what happens is that over time, maybe when you're starting off, the team, the amount of new capability development they're doing is this, but over time, it starts to shrink a little bit as you start to take on more operations, maintenance, sustainment type work. And usually as products mature, that's okay. But there are a lot of benefits that come with this, right? One is that all the work that is requested comes in and gets prioritized by one product owner and a single product backlog. So if there are operations and maintenance requests that need to get done, that product owner is prioritizing them based on priority. So like based on what they're hearing from customers and end users that they want. So if I have a really minor bug, even though it's a bug, it's not going to jump up to the top of my product backlog. It's probably going to sit at the bottom until we can get around to it. If I have a big issue that comes up, it probably will jump to the top, and it'll be something we tackle in the next sprint. And it'll be tackled by the people who actually developed that thing to begin with, which is great. And the one thing that is a really huge benefit with this is that there's a recognition that products they're never done, and they should continue to evolve based on emerging customer needs. So a lot of times with our agile product portfolios, when they get to a place that the product's really mature, the lowest level of support that you're going to have is probably a product team supporting it. All right. The other thing, the other big challenge that I see a lot of is everyone tries to do all this stuff in a vacuum. So you may have pockets of agility here and there across the org, or different teams working on things in different ways, but there's so much value into establishing a way to socialize successes, to socialize and problem solve challenges. There's so much value into setting up these appropriate communities of practices and sessions, work sessions, collaboration sessions to talk about these things. A lot of your agile teams, when you're doing an agile transformation, they are going to run into a lot of the same organizational roadblocks. So if you have a way for them to talk, then people who successfully navigated and solved these things can share their solutions. Agile coaches can ask folks, hey, show of hands, who else is having this problem, and take those things that are impacting everyone and raise them up. If you don't have these ways of collaborating and socializing and talking through these things, you lose the ability to do that. So you want everyone talking, you want everyone working together, you want people to highlight both successes and failures. You want people to feel safe enough to do that. So, if I'm a team and, hey, we had this problem, we tried and experimented this way, but it didn't work out, that sends a signal to other people that they don't have to waste their time trying that experiment as well. If someone raised their hand and said, hey, we did this and it was really successful, it allows people to draw on that and just adopt that as a way of working and see if it works for them. All right. The other thing that you need to do that's really critical is you are delivering value incrementally. If you're doing that, fantastic. If you have cadenced release cycles, fantastic. You have to set up a mechanism to assess value. And that value is really specific to different customer and end user segments And what you want to do is you want to be able to understand, one, do they love your product or not? You want to understand how they use your product. You want to understand, what potentially what they would love and want to keep, what they would want to change. That's critical information for a product team to have. And it may be different across different customer segments. So one of the things that's really important here is for the product owner, they really have to understand who uses their product, how they use it, so they can define those customer segments. Here, if you don't get value out to customers, then you don't have the ability to actually capture their feedback, which is important. That's the important first step. Is we need to be able to deliver value on those routine cadences. If we don't actually release anything to the customer and end user to use, we can't get feedback from them. We can't get meaningful feedback, at least. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. If you just have a buildup of value and you're waiting to release, then guess what? You could be marching in the wrong direction. And once you release that big chunk of value, customers might say, we didn't want any of this. It might be obsolete on delivery because you waited too long. So I always say, again, releasing some value is better than no value. It's particularly useful so you can get value assessment data. You also can generate, if you have those routine cadence releases and they're short, you can build up a lot of team performance data that you can use to evaluate your different teams. You'll have the value assessment data you can use to evaluate different products. That is a way to give leadership the information that they need to make investment decisions. All right. That is all I had to present on today. Any thoughts, questions from anybody?
So I'm going to jump back in as well.
All right. So there's some questions in the chat here. How can Agile product management model work in support of longer term strategic goals of the org? These seem in competition. They're really not. I think what you're trying to do is kind of like you would do with projects. You usually tie projects back to strategic objectives. You do the same thing with products. So a lot of times, you're going to tie your products back to specific strategic objectives or themes or whatever it might be to get you there. And a lot of times your vision for a particular product, that is going to be a long-term view. It's usually about a 5-year lookout. Some places have a 10-year lookout. It's just the planning to get you from here to there is not as detailed. And so as long as you feel comfortable you're heading in the right direction to get there, you don't want to have to force teams to rely on that Uber planning. Next one. You may get there later, but I'm hoping you can share what are the best software tools to help with Agile processing. So in terms of like work management, Jira from Atlassian is a great one. Microsoft Azure DevOps is a good one. ADO. That's a good one as well. If you're working for smaller groups with smaller teams or less teams, you may even be able to leverage free versions of some of them. For my teaching at Georgetown, I use the free version of Jira usually because I have a small number of teams and a small number of people on those teams. I work with a large organization transitioning to Agile, but they've not chosen a specific methodology to follow. So what I would say that is it a key step they're skipping, or is it okay to choose to follow some but not all elements of an Agile methodology? What I would say is you are either Agile or you're not, right? So, and not all organizations fully get there, but you need to make sure at minimum that you're talking about products, not projects. You need to make sure at minimum that you're chipping away at some of those things that I talked about today. One of the things that I would say for any organization is everything leads back to Scrum. So if you haven't really chosen a particular Agile practice, you don't know if, as an organization, you want to use SAFe or less or Scrum of Scrums. Train everyone on team-based Scrum as a starting point, and then scale from there. Get the teams moving and producing and all that, and then think about how to align them. If you can't decide on an approach, there are benefits and there are pros and cons of different scaled methodologies. And that would probably be a whole separate discussion. Code organizations assign a detailed position filled by end users to the Agile team for each product. Yes, kind of. So a lot of times what you want is a product owner who is the voice of customers and end users. And that product owner has to figure out the best way to engage with customers and end users. And a lot of times there are different customer and end user segments to consider. So what the product owner should be doing is they should be defining customer and end user representatives that they can get insight from. If it can't be the whole population. Some populations of customers might be thousands and thousands of people. So you may want to define or target different segments to fill that need. Where do you recommend someone gets a 5 to 15 minute overview of Agile? Let's see. So my favorite book, and this is not a 5 to 10 minute article, but my favorite book on it, because it's narrative and it tells a good story that gets you started thinking about Agile and what it can do and how it works, is called The Phoenix Project. It's a good story. It has characters and it's intriguing and all that. That's a good book to read. 5 to 15 minute overview of Agile. I would have to look around to recommend something. I don't have anything that's coming to mind, top of mind here. I do have some videos that I recommend for my classes, but I don't have those links or names handy right now.
Well, with that being said, then, if anyone has any other questions, please get them in there. But I'm going to have to pay the bills now, so I'm going to have to do a little promotion. So if you like what you saw here today, we have more, of course, here. So we are talking about our certificate in project management, of course. Mike is one of our faculty members, and as I said in the beginning of the broadcast, he's also a faculty member for the Masters in Project Management as well. So I encourage you to take a look at it for this. Anything if you're looking to learn Agile or incorporate it, or further progress your PMP skill sets, please take a look at this. We'll send you the information as well. Oh, looks like a couple more came in.
All right. So one question on any particular advice on working on public-private partnerships. So I have had some experience in that space. I personally think one of the things that is kind of inherent in that type of model, and this is a little bit of a deeper dive, but you're going to have different needs that need to be balanced, and so the product owner role may be something that you have to tackle a little bit as a group. And sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do, I worked in public-private partnerships between airlines and the FAA, for example, and the airlines would have someone who was in a product owner role, and the FAA would have someone who was sharing that product owner role, and they'd collaborate together to prioritize work on their roadmap and things like that to make sure both sets of needs were going to get met. And since the airlines are there's such a large number of them, diverse needs, their role was kind of rotational. So, maybe it was Delta for this quarter, but it would be someone else for the next quarter or the next year or whatever it might be. So that's one of the big things I would say there to help get started.
Well, thank you so much. I think I don't see any more questions unless you see something there. But I want to thank you again, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing this subject today. Very, very thorough. And thank you for giving just the taste. I'm sure there's so much more to learn on this and everything. So again, thank you for your time. And thank you, everybody, for attending today.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And if anyone would like to, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or anything like that. And always happy to talk more.